Riley and I had been best friends since our sophomore year of college. The kind of bond where we could finish each other's sentences, borrow each other's clothes without asking, and laugh until we cried over nothing at all. I never imagined anything could come between us. Not a guy, not even the one she cried over more than once. She called me that night like she always did when she was annoyed with someone. "Wine and vent?" she asked, already knowing I'd say yes. I grabbed a bottle from the fridge and headed over to her apartment without even changing out of my hoodie. When I walked in, the living room was already dimly lit with string lights, music playing low in the background. She was barefoot, hair in a bun, swirling her glass like some dramatic movie character. "You're not gonna believe who texted me," she said. "Kellen." I guessed without thinking. Her eyes widened, then narrowed like she was trying to decide whether to laugh or roll them. "Yeah. I told him to come by. Just to talk. We're cool now." She said it like she was trying to convince herself. I froze. Kellen. Her infamous ex, the one who messed her up for months, the one she swore was emotionally unavailable and manipulative, the one I had silently watched from the sidelines and never admitted I found intriguing. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. And there he was. Taller than I remembered. A little scruff on his jawline now. Same calm voice, same intense eyes that never looked away too quickly. He greeted me like he hadn't seen me in years, which was true, and like he remembered more about me than I realized. We all sat together, catching up. Riley tried to dominate the conversation, throwing jabs at him like she was above it all, but Kellen didn't react. Instead, his gaze would shift back to me, softer, almost curious. I tried to stay neutral, asking casual questions, sipping wine slowly. But the more we talked, the more I noticed the shift. His body angled closer to me. His laugh landed a beat longer when it was at something I said. His fingertips brushed mine when he passed the bottle. When Riley got a call and stepped into her room to answer it, the silence between Kellen and me thickened. He leaned his head back on the couch and looked at me, his voice softer now. "You look different. Grown up." I smiled nervously. "You too." There was something in the way he said it, like he hadn't just seen a friend's friend, but something he had ignored back then. Something he now couldn't unsee. He asked how I was, about work, about my last relationship. I told him vaguely. It felt like I owed him nothing, and yet I was giving him pieces of myself so freely. When Riley came back, she didn't notice the shift. Or maybe she pretended not to. The night ended awkwardly. Kellen left first. Riley hugged him like she didn't care. I stayed a little longer, pretending to listen to her rant about how over him she was. But my mind was still with the way his eyes lingered on mine at the door. As I walked home later, the air was colder than I expected. Or maybe it was just the weight of what I had let myself feel. I told myself it was nothing. Just nostalgia. Curiosity. Old energy rekindled by a few too many glasses of wine and a little too much silence. I told myself that line hadn't been crossed, not really. But deep down, I knew. Something had changed. And it should have stopped there. But it didn't. A few days passed. I didn't bring up Kellen, and Riley didn't mention him either. I assumed that night was a fluke, a reunion wrapped in wine and blurred emotions. But then, one evening, my phone lit up with a message. "Kellen. Hey. What was that movie you once told Riley about? The one with the sad ending?" I stared at the message for a moment. It was so random, so carefully innocent. I told myself it meant nothing. I typed the name back, quick, casual. "Me, Requiem for a Dream." He replied almost instantly. "Kellen. That's the one. Thanks. You've always had better taste than her." That line sat with me a little too long. I laughed, at first. Then I paused. Compliments wrapped in comparisons always feel dangerous, but somehow thrilling too. The next day he sent a song. Then a clip from a movie he was watching. Then a photo of his dog. Every conversation was another string tugging at something I hadn't realized was unraveling. Late-night chats turned into full conversations. The messages went from "LOL" to "I miss talking like this." I didn't tell Riley. She had no idea Kellen and I were even in contact. And I told myself it was out of respect, that there was nothing wrong going on. But each message carried weight. Every time my screen lit up with his name, I felt that nervous thump in my chest. One night, we FaceTimed. I don't know how it started. He said he wanted to show me his new place. I agreed. He gave me the camera tour, but we both knew that wasn't the point. He ended up sitting in his room, propped on pillows, the lighting soft and shadows dancing across his face. We talked about music, love, how weird it is to outgrow people you once thought you'd never live without. I always liked how you listened, he said. You don't just hear words. You feel them. It was such a simple thing to say, but something about it got under my skin. When we hung up, I stared at the black screen for a while. I should have felt guilty. But what I felt was worse. I felt wanted. Desired in a way I hadn't felt in so long. Not for how I looked, but for how I saw things. The next weekend, he texted again. Kellen, coffee, just to catch up. I'll keep it casual. I hesitated for hours. But I went. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment. Neutral territory. I wore something simple, not trying, not trying. Seeing him in daylight made something shift. He looked real again. Not just a memory or a message thread. His smile was gentler than I remembered. His presence still, magnetic. We talked for over an hour. Nothing inappropriate. No touching. Just the kind of conversation that's full of unspoken things. He asked about my dreams, things Riley never even thought to ask me. He remembered a joke I made 2 years ago. He remembered me. Before I left, he reached across the table and touched my hand. Lightly. Briefly. Just enough to make me feel like the floor had moved under my feet. As I walked home, I replayed that touch over and over in my mind. That night, I got a voice note from him. Kellen, you know, it's funny. I never saw what was right in front of me before. I think you're the kind of person who loves deeply. Someone should give that back to you, fully. I listened to it 3 times. I shouldn't have saved it. But I did. The next night, I stared at my phone again. His name was there, glowing. Another message. Another invitation. Kellen, I won't pressure you. Just come over. We'll talk. Nothing more. I didn't respond right away. I sat with my guilt like it was some heavy secret no one else could see. Then I grabbed my coat. I went. And as his door opened and I stepped into the soft light of his apartment, I told myself one last lie. I'm just going to hear him out. But even then, I already knew better. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and something deeper, something warm and intoxicating, like the way his voice had been sounding lately. Kellen greeted me with that same half-smile, the one that looked like he already knew what I was thinking. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. His apartment was dimly lit, candles flickering on the table, music playing low in the background. I froze for a second, suddenly unsure of what I was doing. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Every part of me screamed to leave, to remember Riley. To remember who I was. But he looked at me like I wasn't just someone's best friend. We talked for a bit, small talk, shallow talk. I don't even remember what we said. It all blurred into the moment when the conversation stalled and the silence filled the space between us. I'm not trying to make things complicated, he said, stepping closer. But I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night. I should have stopped it. I should have reminded myself, that there were rules. There was friendship. There was Riley. Instead, I let him touch my face, gently, like he'd done it 1,000 times in his mind. And I let him kiss me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, consuming, like we had all the time in the world to make all the wrong decisions and savor every one of them. One kiss turned into another. And another. Clothes fell quietly. Words stopped. It wasn't just physical. That's what scared me most. Every glance, every breath, every pause before his hands moved lower, it felt like something I hadn't known I was missing until I felt it. He didn't treat me like a substitute. He didn't speak Riley's name. In that moment, I wasn't her best friend. I was just me, completely wanted, fully seen. And I used every inch of that night like it was owed to me. Like I had been waiting too long to feel something real again. In the aftermath, as the candlelight flickered low and his arm lay across my stomach, my guilt returned like a wave. I stared at the ceiling, numb. Then my phone buzzed. 3 missed calls. Riley. And a message. Had the weirdest dream about Kellen. Miss you. Let's do brunch. The words knocked the breath from my lungs. I sat up quietly, slipped from the bed, and stared at myself in the mirror across the room. I didn't recognize the girl looking back. My reflection didn't lie, it looked exactly like betrayal. Kellen stirred behind me. You okay? I nodded. Lied again. Yeah. Just thinking. He pulled the blanket up to his chest and gave me that smile again. Softer now. You don't have to run. But I already had. I left his apartment before sunrise. The streets were empty. Cold air hit my skin like punishment. Every step echoed with a question I couldn't answer. I could have told Riley everything. Confessed. Faced the shame. But I didn't. Instead, I showed up for brunch the next day, pretending to be tired from a late night of Netflix and wine. Riley hugged me tight, rambling on about work and her love life and some guy she had matched with. She had no idea. She looked at me like I was still the one she trusted with everything. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Because now, every time she hugs me, every time she laughs and tells me I'm her person, I feel it. I carry it. The secret. The silence between us. The memory of what I did with the one man she never truly let go of. And Kellen. We haven't spoken since. I blocked him the next day. Not because I didn't want more, but because I did. And that was the part one could never admit out loud.